Budgeting in sports organisations involves the process of planning and allocating financial resources to support various activities and operations within the organisation. This includes predicting the money we'll receive, identifying expenses, and setting targets to achieve goals. To explain this process, we're going to be using the popular game Football Manager, but there are fundamental business practices applicable to any sport or institution within. Let's start with the wage budget. So on this page, we can see our current spending on wages, our committed spending on wages, and an expected budget for next season. Our current spending is the weekly total the club is paying to employees through wages. And as you can see here, there's currently a positive difference of around £60,000 a week between what we've budgeted for and our current spending, which is helpful to know if we were looking to recruit some more players. For example, that 60 grand a week could get you 1 Declan Rice or 2 Ben Johnsons or 60 Callum Marshalls. Football player contracts sometimes include additional bonuses to reward appearances and goals. Jarrod Bowen, for example, is currently receiving an extra £22,000 a week for each goal he scores. Now, we wouldn't want to be enjoying a successful season on the pitch only to find we had payments and obligations to players for bonuses we hadn't budgeted for, which would leave us in a tricky position financially. So the committed spending budget assumes these bonuses will be paid out. This is what we call conservative budgeting. Of course, if players don't achieve these bonuses, this is potential funding for next year's budget. Players' employment contracts are fixed term, usually lasting 3 or 4 years, so we can project our future wage spending. We can see here that we're currently spending just under £2 million a week, but this is due to drop to £1.67 million per week the following summer. This is because there will be 4 players out of contract, meaning we won't have to pay them beyond that point. So for West Ham, unless we agree extensions for Lucas Fabianski, Aaron Cresswell, Angelo Ogbonna and Manuel Lanzini, the current wage is money we wouldn't be committed to spending next season. But we might need to sign new players to add depth to the squad, and whatever we agree to pay them would be added to our committed spend. Okay, so now let's have a look at the transfer budget. So you can see that West Ham's transfer budget for the season is £13 million, meaning that we have that amount of money available for player purchases. In order to acquire players who are employed by other teams, professional football clubs will pay transfer fees. So for example, if we were to spend £5 million on a player, our budget would be reduced to £8 million. Now, £13 million might sound like a lot, but by the standards of an English Premier League club, it's not so much. So we could increase that amount by selling players. Here we can see that West Ham will put 100% of any received fees back into our transfer budget. For example, when they sold Declan Rice for £105 million, West Ham would have had an additional £105 million available to reinvest in new players. If the overall financial health of the organisation wasn't particularly strong, we might not be able to reinvest the full received amount. We can also shift money between our transfer budget and wage budget. For example, £1 million of this year's transfer budget is equal to about £19,000 a week in wages, so we've got a bit of wiggle room here. Finally, you can check out projections to see the club's financial performance based upon the current and future budgets. Here we can see the club are expected to be in around £48 million deficit by the end of the 2024-2025 season. Now, this is despite an expected £12 million more in turnover through broadcasting, gate receipts and sponsorship. Plus, we know we're due to be paying less in wages due to players' contracts expiring, and this is before we've considered new signings. And if you look at the numbers, it's because we're expecting to spend around an additional £40 million in various costs. Although beyond a small increase in transfer budget, it's not entirely clear where these costs are coming from. Now, losing money isn't anything new for Premier League clubs. 2/3 of clubs are loss-making, losing £1.2 billion between 2021 and 2022. £2.6 billion of debt is owed by clubs to their owners, which could be called in at any time. The problem is, all these clubs are essentially overreaching financially in the hope of finishing the season in the top 4 league places, where revenues significantly increase because of European Champions League qualification. If they were to qualify, West Ham's projected £40 million loss could be absorbed, but most of the other 19 teams are trying a similar approach, with only 4 places available. These football clubs are some of the most successful sporting businesses in their field, but does this seem like a financially sustainable business model to you? Obviously here, we've just looked at wages and transfer fees, but there will be many other costs and revenues we would typically consider within the wider budgeting process. If the examples of Portsmouth, Reading, Everton and Bury teach us anything, it's that it's easy to take your eye off the ball when it comes to finances. So hopefully this highlights the importance of budgeting, whether you're a Premier League club with a 40 million transfer budget or a grassroots amateur team just trying to cobble enough money together to pay the ref.